the subscribe button. I took a shower not that long ago, so my hair is just wet, but anyways, today we're going to be talking about Georgia's cursed lake. Now, that lake is actually called Lake Lanier. I may be pronouncing that wrong. I believe that's how it's pronounced, so if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I do apologize. Lake Sydney Lanier. They're still working on that apartment. So if you hear noises that aren't like Sebastian noises, then that's what that is. But it has long been associated with strange phenomena, weird creatures, and a large number of inexplainable deaths, and even unsolved murders. Now, this lake is located in the northern part of Georgia, and it's sprawled out among the foothills of the North Georgia mountains for 26 meters, and at its deepest point, it reaches a depth of 75 feet. Now, this lake is actually man-made, and it's the largest lake in Georgia. And it even has a chain of islands that was originally hills, but when they flooded the area that is now the lake, they became islands. Now, the origin of the lake dates back to 1948 when the U.S. government purchased a 100-acre farm from a river ferry operator by the name of Henry Shadburn. Now, they did this in order to start a water project on the Chattahoochee River for the purpose of providing the city of Atlanta with hydroelectricity, flood control, and water supply. Now, in 1950, the U.S. Corps of Engineers began breaking ground and constructing the Buford Dam on the Chattahoochee River. Now, this would be completed in 1956 and began the process of flooding the foothills to create the lake. Now, the creation of the lake actually had a ton of problems. Yeah. Yeah. They faced problems with funding, which stopped and started construction so much that it was actually remarkable that they finished on time. There was also a lot of debate by surrounding states on how the water should be used. Flow requirements, consumption caps, and they judged laws that water of the river should be set for threatened or endangered species, which I think is pretty messed up because, like, animals should have rights to that too. But that's my opinion. And they even judged what the lake should be called. They even fought over that, and eventually they settled on Lake Lanier. So the U.S. government quickly began purchasing all the land they needed to make this lake from private companies, farmers, and anybody that would live in the area that would become flooded and underwater. Now, during the 5 years that it took for the lake to completely fill to the designated level, the government bought over 50,000 acres of prime farmland and wilderness and moved more than 250 families, 15 businesses, and 20 cemeteries, including the corpses. They relocated those as well. Now, as the lake flooded, it filled entire towns, forests, and other lakes with water. Many of the structures that flooded were actually left as is and is still to this day at the bottom of the lake. So if you were to walk along the bottom of the lake, you would find submerged towns, complete with roads, walls, and houses that are very eerily intact. Now, over the years, there have been quite a few deaths associated with the lake, ranging from boating accidents, drownings, and even a fair amount of drivers who have lost control of their vehicles, going off the road and crashing into the water. There are numerous stories of boats crashing into things when it turns out nothing was actually there. And boats or watercrafts will sink without warning, and dangerous rogue waves will come literally out of nowhere. And oddly enough, a lot of the drownings that have taken place have been close to the shore and in very calm conditions. There are so many rumors that Lake Lanier is actually haunted or cursed. Now, people who have almost drowned but ended up surviving say that they felt like they were being pulled underwater or held under by unseen hands, which is so creepy. I know that if that happened to me, I would start panicking and freaking out. Or that they felt like the air was taken out of their lungs. Now, in 2011, the lake's reputation for accidents and deaths started to gain a lot more public attention when it hit a total of 17 deaths just for the year. And many were actually due to freak accidents. Now, in 2012, the trend continued, where there was a lot of violent deaths and awful accidents, to the point where it even made national news. The first of this wave of death happened on June 8th, 2012, when a 9-year-old boy named Jake Prince and his brother Griffin, who was 13, were riding a platoon out on the lake and were struck by a speeding boat driven by John Creek's business owner, Paul J. Bennett, who was 44 at the time. Now, a few weeks after that accident, on July 9th, 2012, 11-year-old Kyle Glover was struck while riding an inner tube by a family acquaintance riding a jet ski and was rendered brain dead. He died 2 weeks later on July 21st and was pulled off life support. A 15-year-old friend of that boy was also seriously injured in the exact same incident. Now, the lake gets an average of 8 million visitors a year, and there are very few regulations put in place for operating boats or watercrafts, and the few that are put in place are very weakly enforced. Now, a lot of Lake Lanier's deaths actually remain unsolved. One of these cases involves a Georgia man by the name of Kelly Nash, who was 25. Now, he went missing from his home in Beaufort, Georgia on January 5th, 2015. So at 4 a.m. in the morning, he woke up with flu-like symptoms, such as coughing and sneezing. So he woke his girlfriend up, Julia Sexton, and told her that he thinks he needs to see a doctor before falling back asleep. Now, Sexton woke up at 7:30 a.m. to find that Nash was gone, and he had not taken his wallet, his keys, no belongings with him. When he didn't return that evening, she proceeded to call the police and state that he was missing. Now, the police then discovered that the only thing missing was a 9mm pistol. And that was it. Nothing else was taken, nothing else was gone, nothing else was disturbed. A huge search was launched for him, and a $50,000 reward was offered for anybody that had any information about his whereabouts or anything that had happened to him. But there was no trace until about a month later, on February 8th, Nash's badly decomposed body was found in Lake Lanier by a fisherman. I can't even imagine finding something like that. That's something that scars somebody for life. Nash was still wearing his pajamas and the same dark colored shirt that he was wearing when he disappeared. There was no trauma to his body except for a singular gunshot wound to his head, and the crime to this day still remains unsolved. In another case, a 16-year-old Gainesville high school student by the name of Hannah Truelove went missing from an apartment complex near Lake Lanier, where she lived with her mother. Now, she went missing on the morning of August 24th, 2012. The following day, Hannah's body was discovered in a wooded area by the lakeside by another resident of the complex. The girl had been stabbed multiple times, yet it was unclear if those wounds actually caused her death, although drowning was ruled out. Now, they found a series of tweets that took place shortly before her disappearance and her death. And these tweets expressed a general discontent with her life and a fear of a stalker. There was one tweet that specifically said, "So scared right now." So you kind of wonder, like, what had happened and why, like, what was going on, because she told nobody in her life about the stalker. Now, Hannah's father would later say that his daughter had never mentioned or acted like she was in any duress, or she didn't seem any different in the days leading up to her death. No leads ever came from any of those tweets, and no suspects were ever apprehended despite a major investigation, and the fact that there were numerous interviews of people that were close to her, people that, you know, lived in the complex or lived around the complex. And her death to this day still remains a mystery. Now, one of the most notorious deaths surrounding Lake Lanier happened in April of 1958. A young woman who worked at Riverside Military Academy named Delia Parker Young and her friend Susie Roberts headed over to Three Gables in Dawnsville in Susie's 1954 Ford for a night out. They would never return. An investigation on their disappearance showed that they had visited a gas station. However, they had left without paying. The only clue at the gas station was a set of skid marks that crossed the road, which seemed to suggest that the car actually skidded off of the Lanier Bridge onto Dawson Highway and into Lake Lanier. So it kind of like, I mean, I'm obviously not an investigator, but just like based off of that small piece, it kind of seems like they were like running from something. Like they were running from someone or trying to get away, because we stopped at the gas station and didn't even pay. And then there's skid marks, and they must have lost control of the vehicle. Now, they couldn't find the vehicle though, or the bodies. So they even like had divers come in to search for it, and they couldn't locate anything because of such poor visibility in the water and the masses of sheared off tree trunks that literally littered the bottom of the lake's floor. Now, for 18 months, the police couldn't find any more clues. However, a fisherman by the name of C.A. Simpson actually ended up finding a decomposing body floating to the surface, which again, I can't even imagine. The corpse, however, couldn't be completely identified, and it had 2 missing toes and was missing both of their hands. So they never found out what was the cause for the missing toes and the hands, like if it happened before the death or after the death or before she was in the water, or what exactly had happened. But with no way of knowing if this was actually Delia, it was eventually buried in an unmarked grave in Alta Vista Cemetery. Now, the body of Susie Roberts and the car still remains missing. It wasn't until November of 1990 when construction on the expansion of the Lanier Bridge was underway that they uncovered a 1954 Ford, which held the remains of a human body. The car had been hidden underneath the tree trunks, or within the tree trunks, mud and other debris, in 90 feet of water on a steep slope. So the body was so decomposed that it was unidentifiable. However, belongings in the car made them believe that this was Susie Roberts. There was like a purse and other belongings that were hers. And it was concluded that the other body was Delia Parker Young. So they changed the headstone accordingly, and Susie was buried next to her friend in the cemetery. So this case actually spawns one of the area's most popular urban legends. And it is said that a ghostly young woman dressed in a blue dress with missing hands can sometimes be seen walking up and down the lake of the Lanier Bridge. And it is said that this is the spirit of Delia Parker, since she had been the one dressed in a blue dress and found with missing hands. Now, according to those who had seen the spirit, she has become known as the Lady of the Lake and is forever in search of her missing hands, which is awful. Other paranormal encounters, oh my gosh. I don't even know what I just jumped at. I saw something in the corner of my eye, and I don't know. I don't know, you guys. But sorry. Other paranormal encounters commonly happen at this lake. There have been reports of a mysterious raft equipped with a lantern on a pole, ridden by a shadowy figure that actually uses the pole to push the raft through the water. And it appears and it disappears out of nowhere. Now, in one incident, 2 fishermen saw the raft while out on the lake fishing on a rowboat at around 1 a.m. The raft was half a mile away and in an estimated of 45 feet of water. However, the figure was still pushing it along with that pole. At one point, the figure actually shouted something at them, then it jumped into the lake and started swimming towards them. So the fishermen became very fearful, thinking that the figure meant to do them harm. Because, why else is it, coming towards them, and obviously don't know what it shouted. So they quickly reeled their lines in and kind of tried to get out of there. So it was at this point that the lantern on the boat went out. So the fishermen shone their spotlight on the raft to find that nothing was there. The raft was no longer there. The figure was no longer there. It was empty. The black surface of the lake just remained calm, and they didn't see the raft or the figure again, which is very, very eerie. Now, local fishermen also have long insisted that there are gigantic catfish in the lake, which reportedly reach a size between 5 and 7 feet long, which I'm sure you guys all know what a catfish is, but they are not these cute looking fish. So these catfish are said to swallow dogs that get close to the water and even attack swimmers and divers, which is terrifying because you never hear of a catfish attacking people or dogs. These giant catfish are said to be particularly attracted to deep waters below the Beaufort Dam. And one of the most popular tales tell of a truck that was carrying live chickens, which hurled off of the Thompson Bridge in the 1980s and sunk with all of its cargo. Now, divers were sent in to examine the wreckage, and what they saw literally terrified them. They found catfish literally the size of 12-year-old boys gathered about the sunken truck, and they were in a feeding frenzy, swallowing the chickens whole. Which, yeah, at that point, I would definitely get out of there. I wouldn't want to stay to see that. That's a very disturbing thing to see, first of all. And second of all, it wouldn't really make me feel safe. Those are just some of the legends surrounding Lake Lanier, and some of the missing cases. There are a ton, and it's just a ton of different things that have went unsolved along Lake Lanier, and it is pretty terrifying, especially, and I feel so bad for those families because they don't have an explanation. They don't have a person or a thing that did this to the people that they love. And that's, I can't imagine that feeling. It's awful. But I want to know what you guys think of all of the different activity surrounding Lake Lanier. And if you guys live in Georgia, I want to know if you've ever been to this lake and if you have actually seen anything there. Like the Lady of the Lake or the giant catfish or just anything. The rowboat. The rowboat reminds me of the ferryman in Greek mythology that actually takes you across the river Styx. So that's what that reminds me of, but obviously this is a shadowy figure, not a skeletal figure, but still, I mean, you don't know, it could be. It's just described as a shadowy figure, so I feel like people don't really see his face and stuff, so you never know what it actually looks like. But I just think there's so many crazy things that just encompass this lake. And I want to know if you guys have had any experiences here. I want to know what you guys think of all of this. So definitely drop those comments down below and let me know, because I would like to know. If you guys like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Also, all of my social media, which I only have like one, is right down below. And I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your day. And I will see you next time. Bye!